In 1965, a motel company from Memphis switched on what was then described as the largest commercial computer network in the world. Not a bank, not an airline, a chain of roadside motels. The system was called Holidex. It let a traveler in one state book a room in another, instantly, over a teleprinter. It stayed in service for 47 years. To understand why a motel company built that, you have to understand what American road travel was actually like before it. In 1951, a Memphis home builder called Kemmons Wilson drove his wife and 5 children to Washington, D.C. The roads were improving. The places to sleep were not. Roadside lodging in America was a lottery. Some places were clean, some were not. Some had air conditioning, most did not. There was rarely a restaurant, almost never a pool, and the price was whatever the owner decided when he looked at your car. And nearly all of them charged extra for children. Wilson had 5. By his own account, he came home and told his wife he was going to build a chain of 400 motels. That story appears in every retelling, always uncredited, and it comes from Wilson himself. Treat it as what he remembered, not as a documented fact. What is documented is what he built. The first Holiday Inn opened on Summer Avenue in Memphis on the 1st of August, 1952. 120 rooms, air conditioning in all of them, a telephone, a television, a restaurant, a swimming pool, free parking, free ice, and children under 12 stayed free. The name was a joke. Wilson's draftsman, Eddie Bluestein, had watched the 1942 Bing Crosby film Holiday Inn the night before he handed in the plans and scribbled it on the drawings. It stuck. Now here is the part almost every version of this story gets wrong. Wilson did not invent the motel. Motels had existed since the 1920s. There were thousands of them. What he invented was predictability. Before Holiday Inn, choosing where to sleep was a gamble you took every night of a road trip. After it, you could know. Same rooms, same amenities, same price structure, anywhere. That sounds small. It was the entire business. In 1954, Wilson partnered with a builder named Wallace Johnson and started franchising. And this is where the resemblance to McDonald's becomes exact. Because a guarantee is only worth something if it holds everywhere. One bad franchisee does not damage one motel. It damages the promise. So Wilson built the enforcement. There was an innkeeping school. There were inspections and scores. A franchisee who failed them could lose the business entirely. The growth was extraordinary. 30 locations by 1957, 100 by 1959, 500 by 1964, and outside every one of them stood the great sign. 50 feet of green and orange neon with a flashing arrow, expensive to build and expensive to run. It was not decoration. On a dark highway, it was the guarantee, made visible from half a mile away. But a promise you can see only works if you have already arrived. Wilson's real problem was the traveler who had not. Which brings us back to 1965 and to IBM. Holidex was the first chain-wide computerized reservation system in the industry. Before it, booking ahead meant a phone call, a letter, or luck. After it, any Holiday Inn could see the availability of any other Holiday Inn and hold you a room. Look at what that actually does. It turns 1,000 separate businesses, owned by 1,000 different people, into one thing a customer can use. The kitchen was McDonald's operating system. The network was Holiday Inns. It worked. 1,000 locations by 1968. In 1972, the company became the first lodging and food business to pass $1 billion in revenue, and Wilson went on the cover of Time. By then, there were more than 1,400 Holiday Inns. And then, in 1974, the oil stopped. The Arab oil embargo made fuel scarce and expensive, and the Great American Road Trip, the exact behavior the entire company was built around, simply contracted. Profits fell. The company survived that. It did not really recover from what came next, because what came next was not a shock. It was arithmetic. Everyone else got consistent too. Once every chain offered a clean room, a phone, and a pool, predictability was no longer a reason to choose anyone. It had become the price of entry. And the moment predictability stops being special, the market stops being one market. It splits. Travelers who wanted cheap went to the budget chains. Travelers who wanted nice went upscale. Holiday Inn had been built, very deliberately, to be neither. It was designed to be the reliable middle. That was the whole idea. Being the reliable middle is an enormous advantage right up until the moment it becomes a description of nothing in particular. The 1980s made it worse. American lodging was overbuilt by as much as 13% in every major city. The company had drifted into casinos, buying Harrah's, which is where Wilson finally retired in 1979. In 1986, it posted its first profit decline in its history, around $60 million. By the late 80s, the debt had passed $2 billion. In 1988, the British brewing company Bass bought the international business. In February 1990, it completed the purchase for $2.23 billion. Bass became 6 Continents, then Intercontinental Hotels Group, which owns the brand today. The great sign was gone by then. Too expensive to run, replaced in the early 80s by a plain backlit rectangle, but Holidex kept going. Through the oil crisis, the overbuilding, the casinos, the debt, the sale, and 3 changes of corporate name, it was finally switched off in 2012. 47 years. The network outlasted the company that built it, the sign that advertised it, and the man whose idea it was. Kemmons Wilson died in 2003. So go back to that car in 1951. A homebuilder from Memphis, 5 children in the back, driving between roadside motels that might have air conditioning and might not, that might be clean and might not, and that would charge him extra for every child either way. He was not trying to change an industry. He was trying to stop gambling. And he won so completely that you have never had to think about it. You have never wondered whether a hotel room will have a bed, a working lock, hot water, a television. You have never planned a journey around the risk of arriving somewhere unfit to sleep in. That certainty is now so total that it has stopped looking like an achievement at all. Which is the strange fate of a good operating system. When it works, it disappears. The reward for making something completely reliable is that people stop noticing it is there. Holiday Inn did not fade because the idea was wrong. It faded because the idea won.